So, Con, I hear pray tell that you rebuilt the entire railroad all over again.
Yeah, I did it again. I was mad. I was mad. We went broke, and it was broke due to irresponsibility and not understanding how true narrow gauge works. So
Right.
I rebuilt it. Yeah.
And then Greg actually fixed the save system so that we get proper saves now, so we can load a save. So we wink loaded a save and then started over, and Con made a very nice connection here. So we still don't have a lot of money, but we're connected to everything now.
Yeah, we're connected to the quarry now, which is good, and we're connected to the log camp, which is good. So we can actually deliver some logs, make some money, and maybe try delivering some planks backwards and see.
Oh yeah. See what happens.
What the value on the planks are?
Because the quarry takes planks, right?
Yeah, I think. I don't know. I actually didn't check what the quarry takes.
It takes beams. Yes.
Okay, so that's good. Oh, I'm shoveling an empty coal. I was like, why is my coal not going? I have no coal, sir.
Do you have steam, or do I have to shove
I do have a little bit of steam. I can steam my way over there.
All right, well, you go load yourself, and I'm going to go take the purple dragon, and I guess we'll load up at the upper logging camp here, or cactus camp.
So we've connected to all the industries we've got before. The one thing I learned, Heiss was talking about last time, about how narrow gauges avoided trestles and used a lot of cuts in the terrain because cuts and fill are cheap and trestles are not. And so when I redid the whole thing, believe it or not, these are the only 2 trestles on the whole map now.
Right.
These 2 initial ones, and everything else is just cuts, which I think is fantastic.
It turns out pilings and supports and things that can hold up the weight of a train are really expensive, so they tried to avoid them. You still did end up with spectacular alignments that had a bunch of bridges. Like, you look at the RGS, the Rio Grande Southern in southwestern Colorado, and it's like, why'd you try to build a railroad here? It's all bridges, basically. Oops, all bridges.
And metal was, like, they would use iron and steel and stuff, but that was, like, they'd still avoid that if they could use wood just because wood is so much cheaper. Is that the idea?
It depends. A lot of the bridges were built super early, so a lot of them were wood and then replaced with steel later, and there's hilarious tales of the railroad being like, yeah, I don't know if this locomotive will make it across this bridge, and it almost dropping the locomotive through the bridge, being like, okay, that was one semi-successful test, never again. You know, engineering was a little different back in the day, so.
Yeah, it's kind of awesome.
Yeah, but no, in general, if you can avoid a tunnel, if you can avoid a bridge, the railroad would. But sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do.
We do have one tunnel on this track now. The alignment up to the logging camp goes past the quarry, but also it has a tunnel just because when we originally talked about it, that's how we wanted to do it. And when I was doing it, the alignment just sort of worked out that way accidentally, and I was like, well, this is cool.
Yeah, and that's a sharp enough ridge. Like, you wouldn't want to cross that small of a ridge any other way. Like, they would absolutely just punch through that. They might come daylight that tunnel, aka blow up the roof. That?
Was it like explosives, like TNT and stuff?
Yeah, hand drills and dynamite, my friend.
It was literally just hand drills and dynamite. Like,
hand drills, dynamite, and then dudes with pickaxes too. But you know,
right?
Little column A, little column B.
Yeah, and they would that would be it. Okay, for some reason there we go, my coal's finally going up. All right, let's get out of here.
There's that ranch is also like right there too, so we should be able to build to that pretty easy. I don't know exactly.
What, at the sawmill side of things?
By the sawmill, it's to the left. Like, if we put a switch in reverse at the tunnel, on the other side of the tunnel, it would probably.
Oh, it's literally right there.
It's
wow,
right
I never even noticed that. Yeah, switch coming right out of that tunnel that cranks it left. Yeah, I guess we could connect to the ranch too. We need to make a little bit of money though first.
I'm out of money. Can you send, Colin? Could you send me some money?
To buy. Yeah,
I am out of money to load. I'm like wondering why I can't load. You go to settings and then transfer funds. Then you punch in all of the money and send it to me. No, I actually probably only need like $200.
Well, there's $500.
Oh wow, I'm rich now. Look at me.
That'll work. I mean, I'm not going to need that much to fill up on logs here. If I can even afford
these
to
big
fill up.
logs are 14 a piece.
Right.
And I'm carrying, 6 of them on each car, so I'm getting 18. That's math. Like I said.
All right, so The reason I rebuilt all the railroad is number one, to make it look better, make it look more like narrow gauge, absolutely. Also to make it, more fill, less trestles. It's cheaper, and I saved a lot of money doing that. And it's smoother. It's a great alignment, 2% or less for the most part. Really, really shallow 100-meter curves. Everything's gravy. But I'm running into the problem right now, and I want to know your expert opinion on it. I did a lot of train running when I was setting this up and stuff, just to make some money and trying it out and all that. And I run into a huge issue where on downhills I just blow my pressure release valve like crazy, and I can't stop my pressure release valve from just going off like nuts, because like on the uphill I need all the pressure release I need all the pressure to get up the hill, but then as soon as I crest the hill I'm like, now what do I do with all this pressure? Like I don't know.
This is the age-old problem that you deal with a coal burning engine, because you can't take the coal back out.
No, so I fill my fire up, but then what if you're running into a station too? You're just gonna just blow the valve and kill everybody because the
safety. Yeah, I mean, you just hurt everyone's ears, and it's bad practice to pop the safety in station, but it happens. And I've certainly ridden my fair share of trains that ended up popping off a bunch going downhill, but in the reality of it, what you'd be doing is you'd have a water injector that you could cool the boiler off with, because you're putting cold water in the boiler. You put cold water in, thermodynamics is your friend. You have steam and you have liquid water under pressure in a vessel. Temperature and pressure are linked, and so you put that cold water in, and it'll cool it off.
You'll purposely, when you're coming up to a point where you're gonna need to cool down, basically, you'll purposely let the boiler run lower, just to you
let the water level, if you have the space, you let the water level sit a little lower.
Right.
And then you have room to add more water. You can't always do that with geometry, right? You got to keep water high enough so that you're not in danger of doing anything scary with the locomotive. But that's one way that you could do it. The other way is you control burn out the fire. You want to make sure that the fire is burnt out for that transition. And this is the art form that we live with at the Colorado Railroad Museum day in and day out, because we go 4% uphill, then 3.5% downhill, or vice versa.
And you guys put signs along your track? It says shovel here, stop shoveling.
Unfortunately, you can't, because of how dynamic it is. And hopefully someday you can come see what that all looks like, because it's really something you got to learn, and it takes a lot of time to really appreciate the art of it, because it's not just, how much coal is in the box. It's how much coal is there, where is it, how hot is it burning, and what stage of its combustion is it in.
And so there's drafting things too, right? If your engine's working harder, it's going to draft harder, which would burn the fire hotter, as a natural sort of, just because the steam
so anytime you're
working
working uphill, you're heating up the fire a bunch. And so the thought is, okay, I need to get the fire set enough that we're not losing pressure on the uphill, but by the time we get to the top of the hill, the fire has burnt back enough that even though it's just been heated up by the draft, the amount of fuel has disappeared so much that now I'm not popping the safety. And so you really got to think, what's the track doing a couple minutes ahead of me? What do I need to do to accomplish that? So that is quite the challenge.
How close to operating pressure do you guys run? Your boiler, let's say, has a blow-off valve at 160 psi. How close to that are you going to be with the way you guys run?
It depends.
Are you 140?
It depends on the fireman, because everyone has their own little differences and nuances, and it depends on how good you are. For your example, we have 346 that runs at 160. And so it lifts at, between 158 to 160, somewhere in there for the low safety. And Dusty and I, and I'm sure there's a couple others, but I know Dusty and I would always brag about how we could keep it bang on 155 the whole time. Just keep it right there, and not have the pressure change the whole way around. But goodness, I haven't fired that engine in a couple years now, so I'm sure to have to relearn it, because she's been out of service. But usually we're pretty much right up against it. Some people will fire a smidge lower, but you really can't go too much lower, because you have to have sufficient pressure to run the air compressor to get to main reservoir, basically, because you got to be able to make the brakes happy, basically. And on the big engine, that means...
But the reservoir pressure, like, that's got to be way lower than peak boiler pressure, right? Like, it can't be...
It's 110 to 130 psi of air. Okay. So it's relatively
You need to be at least at that level, then.
Yeah, and with losses and the size of the pistons and the comparisons and all that, I mean, you really need to be at about 140 on the little engines that need 110, and you really need to be at least 150, 160 on the big engine. So it's actually pretty significant how much steam pressure you need to carry. But it's just the way it works.
What do you think of this alignment, Heist?
I really like it. I like the tunnel. I like the way it hugs the hills. Limited.
I was a little bummed that there's not a big fill. Like I had to use a lot of like this concrete stone where it needed bigger fill, and I'd prefer to have a bigger fill. So Greg, if you're watching, please give us a deeper fill.
Yeah, come on, Greg.
Some spots like they would just fill, like they just build a big hill, 20-foot tall hill of stone, and be like, all right, this is our track now, like.
Yeah, that's what you use your derailed engines for. You derail the engine on that big curve, and then you just... I need to pause. Yeah, then you just use them as riprap. I'm just going to hold here for you to blitz in behind me, and then I'll start unloading.
Dude, I love running the trains in this game. They're great.
It is really fun.
The fact that you have to do as much as you have to do to like actually operate the thing and keep your pressures running and stuff, it's fantastic. Like it's really okay. So let's talk math, right?
Yes,
math is great. So I know a little bit about math, and I know a little bit about
and
how
you can guess the rest.
Right, and I can guess the rest. So this is where I'm getting a little bit confused, right? Volume versus pressure. Okay, so if you have a 160 psi boiler,
yep,
right, and you put 160 psi of pressure into the cylinder, right?
Okay.
The piston. Your force coming out of that piston is going to be equal to 160 psi times the area of the piston plate inside the piston, right?
Correct. Like, on the one side minus the piston rod, if you're stroking the one way, because you have the piston rod that you have to take into account for.
Because when you're stroking forwards, the piston rod diameter is taken away.
Correct. But that's pretty negligible. But yeah, that's exactly how that works. So you get
more power in one direction than the other, basically.
A little bit, and actually on these European engines, they probably had the piston rod go all the way through. On the American engines, we didn't really care, so it's pretty negligible in calculations.
Okay, so here's how does the steam volume tie into that equation?
It ties into it significantly.
Well, I understand it does. I just don't like more volume would generate more. I'm just trying to figure out how that math actually works when you're trying to calculate the net force that a steam engine is putting out. You know what I mean? Like,
right. And so this is where like you're talking steam engine at full, working hard. It's got that full boiler pressure on the piston.
Right.
Here's the thing that will really help you understand this, and it's all about what the reverser / the Johnson bar does. It sets the cutoff, and the cutoff is the point at which the valve stops letting steam from the steam chest or the Schieberkasten. Okay, so the thing that you're going to need to know is what the reverser / the Johnson bar actually does, right? It controls the valve gear, and we understand that, and that affects how much the valve can move in the steam chest. But what it is physically manipulating, the property that it is manipulating is called cutoff, which is the time at which the valve stops letting steam get to the cylinder. And they say that full cutoff, if you've got 100, the reverser is all the way forward. They say full cutoff is usually about 85% of the stroke of the piston. That is just a back of the napkin. Every engine's a little different, but if you're all the way forward with the reverser, 85% of the time, you're admitting steam to the power side of that piston. So that means if you've got the throttle wide open and you've got full 160 PSI...
And then 20% is power going to the other side.
The 15% is expansion before exhausting. And then yes, there is some cushioning on going to the other side, and there's a lot of neat little details with lap and lead in the valve that actually helps
and then we
got to
talk about
jazz. But
then we're talking about double acting pistons versus single acting pistons.
That's getting a little deep into the valve gear conversation. But for the simple force thing,
one of these days, Heist, we have to have a conversation where all we do is talk about valve gear, because we're both mechanical engineers.
I've been reading some books from the late 1800s about valve gear, and I've been having some aha moments. So yeah, we're gonna have to do that. But that is like the nerd deep dive of all time. I guess I can run to the lower camp this time because I didn't get to see it, and you can run.
By
to
the way,
upper
you
one.
can load up beams on the cars we have.
Oh shoot! I didn't think about that. I just decided to run back and get more logs.
Yeah, I fully loaded beams and 4 cars of beams with this little choo-choo. She's struggling, but she's gonna make it up this hill. And then I'm just gonna dump them off the quarry. I noticed like those logs for me only sold for 14, and when I sold some logs earlier off camera, they sold for 20. And I think there's an actual demand. Like
there is supply and demand. Yes.
Yeah, if it's got low supply, it'll pay you more. So that's kind of a big thing.
Yeah, we're gonna have to play the economy when we get more than a handful of things connected.
Right.
So
and we'll actually have to build a yard for storing materials, and then only bring them when the demand gets low enough that it's worth it. But anyway,
that's gonna make it a little dynamic, and we'll have reasons to have yards and all that.
Yeah.
But the point of the whole thing, the valve gear, the cutoff, the everything, is that last other part of the percentage is expansion.
Right.
So that's when that volume comes into play. You stop admitting pressure, and then you're increasing the volume for that 15% of the stroke. So you could figure out, okay, well, how big's the stroke? It's 15% of the stroke. That's the expansion. The pressure reduces to this, and that makes how big the chuff is.
Oh my god! Like, no, sorry, continue. But I'm an idiot. I understand. Like, never mind. Yeah,
you just figured it out. Now you understand steam engine.
The piston moves. Duh. And then the volume gets bigger.
That's how that works. And so when you have the cutoff,
can't keep up with the volume, then the pressure drops, which means you lose the power in the stroke.
Yes. Which is
so brilliant.
Which is also how you get the efficiency, because most of the time you're running with the reverser not all the way at full cutoff. You have it with a lot less cutoff, maybe 30%, maybe 40%. And at those cutoff positions, then you're letting that steam expand to almost no pressure sometimes. Very quiet chuff, very lightly working. So you get a huge economical use of that volume of steam. Rather than dumping raw 160 psi steam into the steam chest and making it go out the stack as a bunch of noise, you're actually getting the expansive working property by moving the piston. That's how it works.
That's so cool.
People were smart back in the day. They figured it out.
I know, it's really like, honestly, they weren't given enough credit for the stuff that they figured out. So like, if you wanted to run a steam engine super quiet, theoretically you could get your Johnson bar into such a position where like you're just the amount of steam that you're emitting to the cylinder dissipates and equalizes in pressure with the other side of the cylinder right when the cylinder hits the end of its stroke.
Yeah, and then you get basically no chuff. I mean, you'll get a little bit of something, because just
and the
by the way it
exhaust
works,
would be super quiet, and it would sound really, really clean running. But you'd lose power. You wouldn't have as much power as if you were forcing.
No, you're not developing maximum tractive effort at that sort of position at all. But, you know, if you're at speed, that's usually kind of what you're doing, unless you're really beating the crap out of the engine, which is
that's so cool. That's so smart.
That's how it works. It's super, super neat. Super simple, but super neat. And oh god, I filled my firebox to the brim because I wasn't paying attention. Well, that's fine. We'll just burn that down.
Yeah, you're going to just be
we'll just leave it in the corner and burn through it, so...
So I'm going to build a little switch-off section here for the quarry, so you can actually, like... switch and unload on the opposite side,
and then we have a passing track as well. That'd be smart.
Well, kind of. It's not going to be like at the same grade, because the grade goes down. It's going to go up.
Okay, well then you could at least pull into the hole.
You can pull off. Yeah. It's not because the grade is just.
Pass.
Yeah, it's kind of just weird the way it works. I need this switch. There we go. I made $90 a beam selling to the quarry, by the way.
Yeah, you've got money now. You've got money.
Yeah, It's kind of nuts. So when you come up here, deliver your logs again, and then grab some beams, sell them to the quarry, and then like it doesn't matter which one of us has money because we can always just free transfer. So that's kind of
super nice, super easy.
So there we go. That's there.
We don't have to know who holds the purse today.
Oh man, that's Steam stuff. That's so cool. I don't know why I didn't think of that before. That's brilliant. Like actually brilliant.
Right. And when you realize like, okay, when you're talking about volume, the volume of work that you're creating compared to drops of water is insane. Right. Like, okay,
it's silly.
My tender holds, in 491, it holds 6,000 gallons of water, okay? And that's lots of liters for those of you across the pond. And the amount of, like, gallons of usable steam that is probably hundreds of thousands of gallons of steam.
I mean, that's volumetric expansion for you.
Right.
Like, that's just how,
and then you consider
works.
Superheat into that equation as well, and then it's like, holy crap, you're just why was no one ever, I don't know if it was it a technology thing, no one ever did any sort of steam recycling water system? They did try it. There were some condensing locomotives that did that. The problem was that they tended to find that you needed to have such a big condenser that it took up so much real estate on the locomotive that it was impractical. And when you try to recycle the steam, you can't really use it to draft the fire. And so you ended up with less dynamic heat and dynamic steam generation, although you did end up with a little bit more efficiency, but it didn't really work out. So you don't tend to see many steam engines that did that. So
Are you I'm
on the approach to the tunnel right now. Yep.
Oh, okay, I see. I'll pull out of the way then. I'll get off the track here. I need to go forward.
I was just popping my safety on the uphill, which is, just fireman goals.
Is there a way for us to check how much in money or stuff each industry has on our way?
I don't know.
Yeah, I think we have to go there physically. That's okay. Maybe in the logistics menu.
Oh, yeah, I don't know.
We're making money now, dude. This is great. That's so smart. Like, I mean, I never thought about how the volume would play in, because it's like, it's pretty standard. Like, pressure over area equals force, right? There's no volume accounted for anywhere in that equation.
Right.
And it doesn't matter from a purely mathematical standpoint. But then when you think about it, it's like, no, it does, because as your cylinder expands, your area is still the same, but the volume that the steam has to fill is larger, and it's just really smart. It's really smart stuff.
Pressure is about tractive force, and volume is about efficiency. That's the whole thing of it.
Which is how much of your stroke is actually generating that power.
Right.
Yeah. And that must be a really cool curve. We should somehow mount a freaking pressure gauge to the cylinder itself and measure the pressure over time throughout the strokes.
That would be fun. Some steam engines actually just have that.
Have a pressure gauge on the cylinders.
So, some engines have back pressure gauges, which are beyond the cylinders. Some have steam chest pressure, like on the way into the cylinder, so on the head of the cylinder. None of my engines were modern or cool enough to have those. But you watch those gauges, and they dance like our Schieberkasten gauge that we have here in this game, which is a steam chest gauge, is what it translates to. That's not the literal translation, but that's the German word for steam chest. So.
Yeah, it would be cool. It would also be cool because if you lined up the graphs of the two pistons next to each other, or on top of each other, right? Theoretically, you should see the net average power be almost as constant as you can. Meanwhile, they're actually fluctuating up and down on either side.
The neat thing is that the railroads did this back in the day, and there is so much ridiculous math that people have did. There's books that like Purdue University research students put out back in like 1910, where they studied all this stuff, and they had demo locomotives in their labs, and it's like, man, I want to live in that era. Good God, that would have been cool.
Well, because theoretically it's two sine waves, right? And they're like each side is a sine wave. They're offset by 90 degrees, right? Because like the one piston is always, I don't know if they're modeled here where the cranks are offset by 90 or not, but
they are.
Oh, they are. Yeah,
they are. Yeah, Greg animated the valve gear entirely. Greg is an overachiever. We like Greg. If you
wow,
if you
he
have to
did
like
too.
stare down and then like watch, actually hook up the reverser back and forth, and you can watch the Stevenson gear go up and down like it actually
Oh my
does,
god,
and it pivots properly.
it actually goes up and down, and the
Yeah.
slot moves, and then it actually pivots
Greg
above and
is
below.
just, yeah. Greg was one of the first people to do that in Deer Valley modding, and so he's just done it here as well, of course, because now it's just a thing that he just does.
By the way, making that mechanism, I've made one of them before in Scrap Mechanic. I did the wall shirts valve gear a long time ago, and it is very hard to get the physics on the dimensions of those correct in order for them to work the way valve gear is supposed to.
Right. Yeah. Lots of very important little geometric things that I
the
can only
geometry
imagine.
of valve gear is, oh my god. It's some brilliant guy figured that stuff out back in the day. Like, it's insane the geometry you need to make valve gear work.
Yeah, I can only imagine how much of a challenge that must be in a game like Scrap Mechanic.
Yeah, where you can only build on 90-degree angles. Yeah,
Right.
it's a tough one.
So, I want to say the one thing, this is for big, like, express engines, locomotives that could do 70 or 80, but the researchers basically found that once you got above about 15 mile an hour, it didn't matter. You could assume that the force was constant. But before that, you had to deal with the power strokes being cyclical like that, being the sine waves that they were. And that's on a big drivered engine. So in the narrow gauge, you could probably make the same assumption, but say probably 6 miles an hour.
So there was a noticeable gap between like the sine waves when you're below 15 mile an hour.
Oh God, yeah, man, I will never forget. I rode on one of the tourist railroads in the state, and one of their engines was a little out of time, so it wasn't chuffing quite right. And they were running slow, and you felt every power stroke as it was starting off up on this big hill. You could feel each individual one the whole way back the train, and it was like, I'm going to be sick.
That's crazy.
And you could feel it in the seat as the engineer when you get going. When you're working it hard, you feel exactly when the power is getting put down and when it's not. It's kind of amazing.
You ever had a situation where, like, the valve gear inside the piston, like, how is that, like, the rings on that sealed? It's just oil and steel on steel? Like, they're not using any sort of O-ring or anything like that, right? Like, it's just steel on steel, so there's gonna be some leakage of steam between, like, all the joints?
It depends. This is like a whole topic that we could have all of the conversations on, but, like, most engines tend to have, more modern engines tend to have segmented piston rings, and they have piston valves that look just like the piston. They're not like square valves. Like, these early engines would have had D valves, which are different and flat as opposed to being a piston. But they have multiple sets of rings, and they're precision machined and everything for the diameter that everything is and all that jazz. And on 491, we just redid it. She's got a couple sets that I believe are steel, and a couple sets that are actually a bronze that's softer as well, and they seal pretty well, but you definitely know when the rings are done, because you'll hear it.
And they just wear out and stuff, and, like, it is what
They
it is.
wear, and cylinders wear, and then you make new rings, or you true the cylinders, or you sleeve the cylinders. We recently trued 491's cylinders, so high demand bonus. Look at that. Corey wants this
Beams?
stuff.
Is that what you delivered? Was beams?
Yeah, beams. It said high demand bonus, and I didn't quite see how much money it was, but it looked like it was a lot.
I just loaded 4 cars of logs up at the other cactus camp. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to push this up the all the way to the lumber
I might
camp.
have to come help you then. Let's see.
We'll find out, I guess.
How much are these making?
have you
God,
ever-
these are 150. They were 157 for high demand, and now they're 78 for low demand for these big ones.
For the beams.
Yeah. Good
Okay, so
God.
stop selling beams.
Well, they're still in demand. They're not in high demand, though.
Oh, they're not high. Okay, well then sell them
Yeah.
until they're, like, low demand, I guess. I mean, it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. It's just less money we make per trip. But
Right. But it's an easy trip. Yeah, demand bonus,
Yeah.
78. So, let's see.
yeah, we're making money now, which is good. We'll be able to lay more
Yeah,
track.
you
and,
can see if you look at it, like, the storage capacities that the thing has, and we're getting closer to full on beams now. If you look at the industry, they've got these like hazard
Well, what
stripes.
does the quarry give us, though? Like,
Cut
we've
stone, gravel, and coal.
and is it giving us that from beams, or do we need other products
It
as
looks
well?
like it's just beams, and then you could bring tools to augment it as well. because tools is the end all be all, make everyone happy end game thing. So
Gotcha.
okay, so let me see. Cargo chain. What is the we connected to the ranch, right?
No, we can. You were saying it's closed.
Well, we can. Yeah, that just gives us cattle raw to the slaughterhouse, so we don't really have. It's not in our cargo chain. But quarry, I don't know where we need to take the things from the quarry. So
yeah, somewhere. I mean, we can make a little bit more money with this stuff. We're like, this is going much better than it was before when we were broke and I was trying to just make some money. This is incredibly good.
Are you on the trestle? Are you on the way up?
I'm on the trestle. I'm coming up.
Okay, well then I'll get in the hole for you this time then.
Oh, I lied. I'm not on the trestle. I was, and then some guy forgot to set the switch.
Oops.
So you might as well come down.
I will come down then.
Yeah, I will get into one of these lanes.
Here we go.
And wait for you.
We're scooting. The fire's dancing nice and high.
Have you ever seen you ever been operating a steam engine where all of a sudden the cylinders are leaking at all and you see like steam coming out by the rod? Or is it just always...
So the packing that actually seals at the rods, it's called rod packing or valve packing. That is like the one thing that you chase forever. God, all of our engines have packing that leaks a little bit at the very least. Like,
and it just comes out as mostly water though, like it's all condensed.
Oh no, it comes out, and I mean you got to remember it's under pressure, so it's super hot. So it can't be water. I mean, it instantly flashes to steam, even if it was water. But yeah, I mean, sometimes it takes up, sometimes it doesn't, and we're actually working on rebuilding the packing on 20 right now, because 20's packing is never sealed up all the way. It's just kind of the way it is.
Why wouldn't they just have like a high temp grease or something that wouldn't? It gets too hot, it liquefies the grease, and then the grease seeps out anyway? Or
so the rod has to move through, so you can't just use a grease because it gets scraped off.
Right, okay.
So you gotta have metal on metal seal, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And so they have different types of packing, and we're trying different types, but the type that 20 came to us with from Strasbourg did not want to seat in ever. So she's got, we're working on new packing, and 491's actually pretty decent. When we got her in service, there was I mean, we could never get the one piston to seal up, and so every time it would be rolling down the tracks, you'd hear as you get steam on the one side, it just goes and it drives you nuts. But that's a thing that they do, and over time it'll leak and wear.
You're losing power on every stroke. Right?
You are
like you're losing
not much, but you are losing some. But I mean, packing, you don't really lose that much unless the packing's totally toast. Even if it's leaking a little bit, okay, it's a little efficiency thing, but it's one of those maintenance things that comes up on steam engines that all steam engines do. That is a fun thing. So. And
man.
If you looked real close at the trailer for Century of Steam, you may have noticed that I bothered to go through and simulate that. So,
what, you have simulated part maintenance?
Well, packing leaking at the very least so far. I can't talk about maintenance because we're not ready to talk about how maintenance is going to work yet, and we're not announcing things on my channel. But I do point out that the packing was leaking. So, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. You know how it is.
Dude, this is great. This alignment's fantastic.
I really like this. And yeah. I just got to the other cactus camp. This one seems to have more logs more consistently than the lower one. The top one, yeah. Yeah, the lower one seems to be like further to get to than the top one, but always with less stuff. So I don't really understand. I'm not sure what the deal is. It might be a lower level or something, or maybe it just started with less. All right, I've been doing the good old-fashioned Railroads Online technique of slowing yourself down by putting the reverser into full reverse with full throttle as well as brake. There you go. That's like legitimately we could do that in real life because we just force steam to the wrong side of the piston and slow it down. That must be hard on it. It's so, I mean, it's not ideal. You wouldn't want to open the throttle wide with the bar all the way in reverse. Like, you definitely can. And a lot of engines, particularly in industrial settings or early on, didn't actually have any sort of brakes. And a lot of early engines didn't have air brakes. Even when the trains got brakes, the engines themselves didn't have it. So you'd Johnson stop it is the term, and you'd pull the bar over and stop it with that. And you can. I mean, it's not ideal, but
to do it without damaging stuff, you'd go throttle to 0, bar over, then bring the throttle up slowly, and introduce throttle back into the system.
Yeah, and just a couple notches in reverse. You wouldn't want to go like crazy huge into reverse, honestly, like that in the video game, going all the way back, and then have the brake on. I mean, you'd just be trying to slip the wheels in reverse, basically, try to break traction more than anything else. So, and that's not ideal, but it works in the video game. So,
well, I'm getting $20 per log with a little bit of a demand bonus, so it's not great.
Okay, yeah, I can see that. I'm watching your money go up in real time.
Yeah, it's nice, man. It's nice. We're gonna have money to do stuff.
And I am coasting down the one trestle coming into the yard, and then I guess I can't turn around. We don't have we should build a Y somehow.
What, at the shunt yard?
At the shunt yard, that'd be nice.
Okay.
But I'll just shove through this.
We have a lot of beams and lumber. Can I load up lumber? Oh no, I can only load beams on these. Oh, I see. Each car has a specific thing. I'm gonna load up a bunch of beams, and I'm just gonna drive right on past the quarry and take them all the way to the freight depot, just for curiosity's sake. We have a ton of product anyway, so it's not like a huge deal. But I'm just curious.
Are you coming to the freight depot right now?
I can. Do you want? I can wait up here though too.
I was just gonna line the switch and get on a big trestle. So.
All right, you come up.
If you'd wait in the hole for me.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna wait at the loop of the logging camp.
Oh, you can do that. I mean, you can proceed to the hole if you want.
Yeah, but I'm scared. I don't know if I'm gonna make it to the hole before you get here.
Gotcha.
Because I gotta go up to get to the hole, and this thing loaded is not as powerful a choo-choo as yours, so.
I see. Yeah, I like this thing. Big tender. It's fun. I've managed to not get my fire as set as I wanted it before I started attacking the hill, though.
Yeah, this game definitely needs water simulation. It would be the next thing, and then it would be awesome. Like where you can control your injector flow, the amount of water in the boiler, and then
then you're firing for real. Yeah.
Yeah. Because that would be wicked. I'd love to play with the injector and just because getting to that steady state is so hard to do.
Right.
And it's like that perfect steady state where your injector is bringing in just enough water that amount of water evaporates in just the same amount of time that it brings in that amount of water, which also provides your cylinders with just the amount. And obviously it's constantly changing because you're going uphill, downhill, your load changes, whatever.
You gotta set it for each part of the railroad you're running, and that's why knowing your railroad's important.
Right, but getting to that steady state even just once, I feel like I've never really done it, even with just the throttle, let alone adding water into that whole equation, right? It's a really hard thing to do. And I'm blowing my safety valve like crazy right now. I'm shoveling coal in. I don't even care though. I'm burning super black right now. I'm just preparing to go up this hill at 1,000,000 miles an hour, and I just don't care. I'm gonna burn nice and black, not drafting at all.
Well, there you go. I'm on the approach to the tunnel right now at this moderate pace, and the pressure's kind of stabilized around 5 bar. Fire's burning down, burning nice and clean. Not sure what Khan's problem is.
I'm not burning clean. I'm not under load, man. I'm trying to. It's okay. You're going to leave the station, right? As soon as I leave the lumber mill station here, I've got to climb at about 2.5–3%, right? So I need power, I need temperature, I need heat. How do I prep my engine to not just blow my safety valve right away?
Well, so on the real thing, you'd toss coal in, and when you toss coal in, it cools the fire off. Wait a minute.
Oh,
that doesn't make sense. But yes, it does, because you have to heat the coal first. The coal is actually colder than the fire, so the energy has to go to heating the coal to its ignition point first. And then it lights the coal, and then the coal has to actually pop open and start combusting, which takes a little bit unless the draft is pretty violent. If you toss coal on an idle fire, it'll take it 5 minutes before it's actually putting out superheat.
So this would all come down to how well a fireman knows his engine's like heat up time then.
Absolutely.
Because like let's say I need to leave in like an hour. I have and in 1 hour I have to leave this station, climb up 3%. That fireman's gonna have to have started building the fire probably more than an hour before they leave, right? Like it would be a pro.
So it depends, right? Drink.
It depends. It's a wonderful game.
It is. Welcome to the game. It depends. Yes. So the engine has to be fired up, right? Like you're not building a fire in an hour and then going to do the thing. So to have an idle fire in it.
24-hour process. I saw your one video where you like fired up with like kindling initially, and like 24 hours later you finally have the engine running.
Right. Which is taking a very slow pace at it as a museum and all that sort of stuff. Which, obviously you can fire it up much faster than that if you really, 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 really had to, but it's not ideal. Track's yours, bud.
Yep.
So, okay. Like, I'll give you an example. Polar Express. It's an event we run at the museum, and we do 3 performances a night. Usually it's 491 that runs it. And the way that it works out is that there's a stage show that's not in the train because the train's very small, narrow gauge, right? So they do a stage show to start, and then the magical train comes in, and everyone's excited, and they board the train. We go to the North Pole and all that. And so we run for about 45 minutes with the folks on board, 45 minutes, something like that. And then we stop, and we have to go hide and pretend that we're, the mystical train that's going to be coming down the street in a little while. And we end up sitting for 30 to 45 minutes, depending on how the show's timed out and what's going on. And we need to be ready to go up a 3.5% grade with the 491 and everything. And you'll sit there, the fire will go, and it'll be hot. There'll be coals, but you won't see much flames. It'll be looking like junk. And about 10 minutes out, you get after it with the coal scoop.
You have like no draft, right? Like it's like
we have a valve for that. You have a blower, so you can add draft if you need to. But when you're sitting, you don't want to be popping the safety valve. So you let the fire kind of die back. You don't run the blower unless you're trying to keep smoke out of the cab, which that's a whole nother thing. But lungs, who needs them?
Yeah.
And so you let the fire die, but then about 10 minutes out, you kill the firebox with coal. I mean, you probably put 30 scoops of coal from a big number 4, number 5 Rio Grande shovel into the 491, and then you light it off with the blower, get some draft going, or you can let the engine work, but if you wait for the engine to work it, the coal usually hasn't lit all the way, so that's a whole thing.
It's all timing. It's all timing.
With coal burning, it is all timing. Everything has to be done such ahead of time.
Exactly how your engine's gonna run.
Right.
Okay, so here I've got a situation. I've got coal in my fire. I don't have water to inject, and I'm blowing my safety valve, going downhill, and like there's nothing I can do. Right?
You gotta blow down. Blow down valve gets rid of water, and then you can add more water,
which we don't have in this game.
Nope.
But I could use a blowdown valve and just...
Right. If you don't have space for water, you can blow down. And the nice thing about blowing down is that it's really good for the boiler. So it's not like, oh, don't blow down. It's like, oh yeah, blow down.
Where does that pipe actually hook into the boiler? Is it just on
It is just a hole in the boiler. It is tapped directly into the side sheet of the firebox on our engines. Some of them then had like special devices to make it not make a huge mess. Like big passenger engines had special diffusers that made it come out like a nice gentle plume of steam. Ours it just opens like a 2-inch diameter hole in the side of the boiler and makes what you would expect happen.
just boom. Here's a lot of stuff.
Yeah, and it instantly flashes to water because it's, 400 degree Fahrenheit, basically, water and steam. And so it's instant, it expands and comes out to be at atmospheric, whatever it is. It flashes immediately to steam and turns into a huge plume of steam and all that. And it's pretty dramatic. And it's kind of an unfortunate pain for us at the museum because there's usually only like 1 or 2 places on the loop that we can actually safely blow down. So... It always gets a little interesting, and then new firemen tend to end up with too much water, and then it's like, well, can we blow down? I'm not sure. We'll have to see. And so it's very much a timing thing. Whereas with an oil burner, you can just turn the fire off, which that's handy. So it's the reason a lot of railroads went to oil burning.
With the oil burners, you just turn your fire off.
They usually relighting it can be a pain, so they'll bring it down to what they call a spot fire, which is basically like a bigger version of the pilot light in like a gas-powered water heater or something.
Right. All right, Heist, there you go. You can check the map. I made you a Y.
Did you?
Yep.
Oh, look at that. I like that.
Yep. And it just comes off. It's 100 meters radius off the one, so it's still a nice smooth radius, and it just it's got enough of a lead track on it there that we can actually, you could Y your whole
Y the whole train. How much money did you make selling the beams to the freight depot?
I haven't sold them yet, actually. I'm just kind of sitting on them.
Okay,
right
I'm gonna pause at the quarry, and I've got a train of beams. Obviously, mine are bigger beams, but
yeah,
I want to see what the cost difference is.
Track building of this is awesome. It's so easy.
Dude, I love it. And Greg added some QOL for this update recently, adding in like height elevation markers and stuff, so you can actually see what you're doing on the map when you're laying track. And yeah.
Where do I see these height elevation? What?
Let me see. Let me grab his changes.
Oh, elevation 382 feet. It just like literally tells you right in the track.
So you can see.
Oh my god, I can go scout locations now.
Yeah.
And check. Oh, that's fantastic. I didn't do that for this, but I'm gonna do that in the future.
That was directly feedback based on our last episode. So
that'll be super convenient when we're going to mountain places too, because we can be like, all right, we need to get to 380 feet before we, clear this hill or whatever.
And now we know how much track we need to make to get there at a certain grade,
nice.
Or we can build a railroad like the railroad built the railroad. Imagine
we can actually do math and survey.
Okay, I'm spotted at the quarry.
All right, I'm pulling into the freight depot now. I was on the wrong track.
Oh, it happens.
Someone left the switches to the wrong spot.
It's fine. There's no beams here right now, so I'm gonna sell these beams, and I'm probably gonna make
no beams.
Pretty penny. It's 8 through them already.
Oh God,
yeah, I'm getting $157 a piece on these.
You're up to 2,300, dude. You're making bank now.
Dude, these big beams, when it's in high demand right here, that's tasty. I like that.
I'm out of coal again. Dude, you know what I love about this game? You work through your coal.
The engines are actually using their fuel. Yeah.
When you work through your engine, you're working it up that 2% hill, towing a full thing. You can see your coal pile just dropping, and you're like, well, now that is.
Yeah, mine's actually gone down in the tender too. I hadn't noticed that till you said that, but it does dynamically decrease.
It's empty. She empty. Okay, I got $31 per beam at the freight depot.
Oh yeah, so it's just like ridiculous.
So like even when you're in low demand, you're still better.
Yeah, $78 at regular, but these are bigger beams, so they're theoretically doing double. So
yeah, but either way, I mean, we got to deliver more logs to get more beams, and then we can check the lumber camp and stuff, and then we should look at what other industry we can connect to next.
Right.
We should probably get up to, I think, like if we can both maybe get up to $3-4 grand each, we'll probably have enough to connect anywhere we want, as long as we don't do many trestles. But yeah, we got to see where the quarry products need to go,
right,
and then go from there.
Yeah,
oh my god, there's another quarry.
I'm bringing my train down to the freight depot, and connecting to another quarry may not be a bad idea if it's easy to get to.
It is not. It is way up at the top of the map, like over top of Mount Everest, in case you didn't.
Gotcha. So not
like
that
if you look at where our quarry is and go straight northeast of that ish, there's another quarry and another ranch, and like we could eventually connect up to those, but we would literally have to we'd have to drill a hole through Mount Everest. It would be like a 1 kilometer hole.
It's either that or you just build the pass of all time, 4% ridiculous over the hills and far away line. I mean, that's what the narrow gauge would have done. That is Cumbres Pass. That is on that railroad I was talking about, the Cumbres and Toltec. It's still around in southern Colorado. That is the tallest railroad pass that still exists in the United States, because they had to get over the Rockies somehow. And so 4% grade, 15 miles, getting up to 10,020 feet. There you go.
That's ridiculous. But at least we know how to make money now. The track is nice. It's clean. It's wonderful. Here's your Y heist. I don't know what you want to do with it, but it exists.
I might Y my train at some point, but...
yeah, I need to probably flip my engine around so that it's actually at the front of the train and not doing this push-pull thing. But yeah, let us know what you guys think in the comments down below. Obviously, much more success. Turns out laying track should actually be done as cheaply as possible. That's the name of the game.
That is how you do the railroad, and that is why narrow gauge actually. But anyway.
Yeah. But yeah, let us know what you guys think. Make sure you hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and we'll see y'all next time.
Bye.
Bye.